Good afternoon. This is the Art of Leverage interview with Sadiq Mohammed from various different businesses, and we're going to talk to him about his business journey. So, how did you start your career?
From graduation, I started in corporate finance. So my background is really corporate finance with HSBC and then Lloyds. Great businesses to start with. Really helps you understand the foundations of business, foundations of P&Ls, the art of borrowing, what is a good company to lend to, etc. So that was my sort of background. That was my first sort of 5-6 years out of university.
So how did you get into the business process outsourcing sector?
Well, yeah, so it was by chance, really. I got approached by a company called Experian, and I'm sure we all know who Experian is, who were big into the world of data. So they were providing huge amounts of data to banks to help them with their decision-making process. And they were looking to, they were seeing this influx of American banks coming in the mid-90s into the UK, Capital One, MBNA, if you remember, and a number of other banks were coming into the UK, and they were helping them set up from a decision-making process and a system perspective, but they also needed contact centers, because once you start issuing credit cards and loan agreements, there is a whole servicing element to it. And so they were and they needed a team who sort of understood the financial services side, which I did, and understood how to speak to these banks. And they were part of a company called Great Universal Stores, GUS, if you know the Northwest. You know, they were a big sort of catalog retailer, and they had call centers, and Experian were a subsidiary of theirs. So they were then going to leverage their contact centers, because they had spare capacity, to build a business called Experian Business Support Services, which later turned into reality. And I went in there as one of the sales directors. And that's how I started in the world of call center outsourcing. I subsequently left there and went to Ventura for a couple of years in Leeds, which later became Capita. And then I spent really the lion's share of my career in a company called Vertex in the Northwest in Manchester. Medium-sized outsourcer, turning over about £300 to £400 million, was relatively big in the sort of utility sector, because it had been born out of the United Utilities business. But then it extended into telecoms, retail, financial services, etc., through acquisitions and through organic growth. And I was, part of that, bringing on clients like Tesco's, bringing on clients like Lloyds, and a number of other clients as well. So that was great fun, and I did that for about 10 years. And then I decided it was time to go, and I took a very, very small, I was given a small percentage stake in a company called The Listening Company, who were sort of a small 5,000 FTE business, UK focused only, who wanted to grow into the retail sector. And I had some good experience in that space. And within a year of me joining, not that I had much to do with it, the business was sold to Serco.
Right.
We all did very well out of that sale, but there was some golden handcuffs, and I stuck around there from 2010 to 2015, involved in some significant outsourcing deals. And then I left and set up my own consultancy.
What about now? What's your current role, and what are your current business now?
So currently I'm the managing director of a company called USmart Limited, and what we do is we fundamentally, we're a boutique provider of consultancy services to clients and to outsourcers. So we act as a sort of middleman or broker, if that's the right sort of decision, the right way to describe it. And I spend a lot of time talking to clients that I've built up through my 20-odd years, being in this industry, who trust me, trust my recommendations, and ask me for recommendations based on, their requirements. And their requirements may be, look, I've got a call center in the UK that isn't working as well as it could be. I need help with placing it with an outsourcer so I can get some more flexibility, get some access to better people, better technology, or they may be under some serious cost constraints, which I think most organizations are now.
Definitely.
And they need to deliver the same, if not better, quality of service, but place it in a location that is offshore. So India in the 90s and 2000s was prevalent for front office call center outsourcing, but I think more recently, locations like South Africa, have really come a long way in the last sort of 5 to 10 years to be at the forefront of, front office call center outsourcing. I think back office outsourcing, things like IT outsourcing, F&A, payroll, is still prevalent in India. Right. I think front office, I think clients that have so many more choices to consider than just India and Philippines, as has been the case for the last 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, the customer service sectors of every business needs to improve all the time, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's about investment, the quandary for a lot of COOs and customer service directors is: do I invest in my people, my processes, my technology? Do I invest in all of those? And where am I going to get the quickest return for the investment I put in? So I generally sit with clients and say, look, you focus on what you're good at, whether it's buying and merchandising products, marketing, etc., whether it's telecoms, whether it's travel, and let an expert who is good at running call centers and customer service centers and manage them for you, and have some very good, a KPI and SLA framework in place that enables you to measure the quality of the service that you're getting in line with exactly how you would measure it, within your own operation.
What do you see as the biggest reason that enterprises are looking to work with BPOs now?
I think the reason why enterprises now want to work with organizations is because of, if I think about the recruitment issues that you have in the UK, retaining staff, the new hybrid working model that was forced upon organizations during COVID. A lot of organizations that would never have considered home working very quickly considered home working, irrespective of the risk elements that their compliance teams said there were there previously. Then COVID meant that all of a sudden these risks disappeared. Well, they didn't disappear. They just decided that it was the risk was worthwhile versus the challenges of not answering customer service inquiries. A lot of staff have now got used to hybrid working. They like the idea of being at home 2-3 days a week. I'm at home, I work from home. And a lot of the people I know work from home and enjoy that. But then, that has its downfalls as well, because if it's a very lonely job. And whilst it's convenient from your family life perspective, it's very difficult to build, I think, sometimes the team culture that you would normally have unless you get humans together.
Yeah, I think the creativity that's missing from people working from home, the round the coffee station chats and that sort of things gone when you haven't got people interacting with each other.
Absolutely. So that is the big challenge, I think, for a lot of organizations. And a lot of organizations are now asking their staff to come back, once they, so they're asking them to come back, whether it's 1 day a week, 2 days a week, they are, building that within their policies. So that's causing some concern. Couple that with, so you've got the recruitment issue and the retention issue. Couple that with customers who are much more informed, in when they do come across. And there's lots of forums now you can go on to answer your queries, to your basic inquiries. So when customers are contacting you, it's generally for a complicated inquiry.
Yeah.
It's not for I need to change my address, or I need to change my direct debit. Those things can be done through my accounts and self-serve and all that sort of stuff, and bots can do that, etc.
Yeah.
So when they are contacting you, it's for something that's quite complex. It needs a huge amount of empathy, around that problem, and how you then deal with that issue, that query, will depend on whether you retain that customer and they become an advocate of yours, or they become, a detractor. And as a result, they leave and they tell 10 other people how bad the service was as well.
Yes, I remember having a customer service chat with British Gas,
yeah,
which was not very satisfactory at all.
Yeah, there you go. So, and it's a real challenge because a lot of businesses will have broken processes, and they don't spend the time and the effort on fixing those processes and those policies, and they think, let's just get sometimes, more cost-effective people, and that should fix my problem. That only fixes your budgetary challenges. That doesn't fix sometimes your CX and your CSAT challenges, because you've got then well-trained people sat in another part of the world who have the same issues and challenges that your staff had. The only difference being they cost you less, they turn up to work, they deliver a good service, they deliver an empathetic service, but they still have the same tools that your staff had in your own centre, or within your own jurisdiction.
What do you think's driving this today compared to 10 years ago?
I think 10 years today now, it's easier to get services anywhere in the world now. So, and and the risk side of it, and things like PCI, and the ISO frameworks really mean that a lot of organizations abroad, offshore, have the same level of controls and measures in place that you would have here. What's driving it now is, I think, if I think about inflation, cost of doing business here now, cost of retaining people, acquiring people, retaining people, etc. Those are some seriously big challenges. And you have to pay people a lot more here to do what I would call some of the more difficult stuff, because the simple stuff is done on self-serve in some shape or form, whether it's, through my account, through like chat, whatever, it's all done. It's, you've got to pay people well and motivate them, and try and build a team culture in an environment where, there is huge demand for resource. There's every company is trying to pay over the odds. People are paying bonuses to people, to agents to join. So there's just this massive demand for staff, and I think that's what's driving organisations to review their sort of sourcing strategy.
It's definitely a candidate-led market at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely candidate-led, and I think that is driving a lot of COOs and CFOs' decisions to consider alternative sourcing strategies around their customer service centres, and that's where USmart as a business really helps, because we can come in, we can talk to you as somebody who's worked in large BPOs, understands what their capabilities are, and based on your requirements, we can make really good recommendations, and we get rewarded by the BPO. So the customer, our client, doesn't pay us a fee. The BPO pays us a fee for the for the services that we deliver.
What sort of enterprises are you looking to work for as partners?
So the sort of enterprises that I generally work in the retail sector. I work in telecoms and media quite a lot. Insurance. More recently I've started working in, and I'm starting to look at travel. So those four sectors are the ones where I tend to sort of focus my energy. Retail is growing massively. We all know that. I'm involved in a business called Parcelli, which is is on the other side of retail in terms of first mile and last mile deliveries. So I understand the growth that's happening because I see the volumes with the carriers that we work with. So I can see the growth, and retailers are, seeing huge growth, and they need to be able to deal with the peaks and troughs of that growth. I'm dealing with a huge amount of insurance brokers now recently, again, who are struggling to recruit and retain staff in the UK, and are looking at alternative options where they hadn't done previously. And one of the organizations I work with in South Africa is probably the best outsourcing business in insurance.
Right. Okay.
And they understand that they've been working in that sector for about 9 years, and generally most insurance clients that I tend to work with, we end up placing them in that particular business, just because they have the capability, they have the IP, they have people who understand insurance brokerages better than sometimes the clients. So, and as a result of that, clients love that level of IP being afforded to them.
Yeah, when you want to get through to a call center, you want them to understand your situation and your business, don't you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think having then, management who understand that sector and understand, the ins and outs of it, the regulatory aspects of it, the risk, the compliance elements, really help some clients to sort of refine and improve some of their own processes. So, as well as getting the benefit of, you're getting a labor arbitrage benefit, you're also getting the benefit of working with some real experts who understand your sector, who can come at it because they deal with 7, 8, 9, 10 clients in that sector and know what good practice looks like, and will then, be able to help you refine your processes, refine your policies. So, you are delivering best practice.
Where does it sometimes go wrong?
Ooh, I think where it goes wrong is where clients sometimes, I always say to clients, don't outsource your mess for less. So
Right.
clients think, yeah, I'll just throw it over the fence, give it to an outsourcer, and they'll just deliver it cheap and it'll be great. No, you've got to invest in that relationship, like any relationship, like you would if you're opening your own operation. You would recruit, train, get them into the culture of your business, get them to understand your customer demographics and why, and what level of empathy you need to apply when talking to these customers and interacting with these customers. That level of investment is what's needed from clients, and sometimes they miss that. And when I sit down with clients, I really push hard that you need to allocate a number of people to run this project and to want to make it a success. Because you're going to have a separate entity talking to your customers, and you want to make sure that they understand exactly how to engage with your customers, and you've invested. So that's from a client side. From an outsourcer side, where it goes wrong sometimes is they are so desperate for the business, they will price it at such a low point to secure the business. But what that then means is they can't invest, and invest in good management, good team management. They can't invest in some appropriate technology to give insight to the clients about what's happening with their customers when they're interacting with them. And what they'll do is they'll just provide a basic service, so because of that, then these relationships don't last too long, and as a result of that, both parties part with really in a situation where they feel like they haven't had the best experience. But the reason why they haven't had the best experience is they haven't invested in that. And it's like any relationship, if you don't invest time and effort and energy into that relationship, and if all you do is just give them minimal amount of time, minimal amount of effort, little in, little out.
Yeah, but if you don't train the people, your assets properly to deal with the situation, then both sides are going to get frustrated, the person calling in and the person at the other end of the phone.
Absolutely. You can't, at the end of the day, the agents and the staff are only as good as the training that's been delivered to them. The training program is only as good as the trainer, and you know, the outsourcer and the client can work on the training program, and the outsourcer can generally give a lot of good feedback to clients, because the outsourcer has seen 20 of these training programs, whereby the client only knows their training program. So they can give them really good idea about, well, this will work really well, this won't work really well, etc. So they get a lot of value add through engaging with an outsourcer, but they've got to engage, and they've got to engage well.
So they'll also get better at answering the questions, because they'll know what questions are going to come in most often, that sort of thing. So they can train people how to deal with the, you know, the different situations better.
Absolutely. And customer experience now, you know, is measured in so many different ways, you know, and people, you know, end of call survey, CSAT, end of chat survey, blah, 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 blah. You know, there's so many different ways where the consumer has a voice, but the biggest voice that they have is by leaving you.
Yes.
Yes, you know, so, and if they leave you, they then tell 5 to 10 other people why they've left you. And if they stay, they tell 5 to 10 other people why they're staying and why they, you know, love, you know, buying the services from you. So, you know, you just got to, my view is, you know, that is the biggest measure of all of this is the CSAT and the customer experience. And as a client and as an outsourcer, that's what you've got to be focused on.
So is setting up the right culture in a centre vital to it working well?
Absolutely. The whole cultural piece is probably the most critical part, because if you're sat 4,000 miles away and you're being told about client X, and client X does this and they do Y, you know, unless there is a real, you know, true understanding, you know, between the call center outsourcer and the client, and how to transcend that culture across, whether it's through products, through different ways of learning, interacting, buddying up, whatever, you know, team sessions, etc., whatever you choose to do, you know, prizes, rewards, all that usual stuff, you know, having people come into the different centers, you know, doing job secondments. There's so many different ways that you can do it. If you don't do that, some of that stuff, then it will become an autocratic type of relationship where the client demands X and then wonders why they're not getting that back, you know, because they haven't invested in it and they haven't invested in the culture.
What's your most recent achievement that you've done that you?
So outside of work, I've got involved in builds. I'm from Pakistan, or my parents are from Pakistan. I was born in the UK. I spent a fair bit of time in that country. And one of the big things that my father focused on was education.
Right.
He was never educated, never went to school, and he was always insistent that we all went to university, etc., etc. And I got involved with a charity, a UK-based charity called Reed Foundation.
Right.
To a friend of mine. They've been around since the early 90s. They've got hundreds of schools that they've built through donations. And I got involved, and we built, it's all over my LinkedIn as well. We built a school for 350 kids.
Yes, and that.
Yeah, in Kashmir. And it's full. You know, we've got, I think, 14 or 15 different classrooms. I was one of the largest donors, and I helped raise the funds as well. And I, you know, have one dedicated to my father, my late father, and one to my mother. And it's great because, you know, these are kids who could never afford to go to a school like this. It is a state-of-the-art school. Typically, just to give you some context, you know, fees, private school fees in Pakistan would cost 25,000 rupees a month. Okay, wow. You know, which isn't a lot of money when you work it back here. However, and the average salary in Pakistan is about 30,000 rupees a month. So, you know, the average person earning 30,000 can't afford to spend 20,000, 25,000 on one of their kids to go to school. Yeah, they just won't do it. So they'll go to a government school, which aren't great. What we do is to make it self-funding, we only charge 1,000 rupees, which is the equivalent of a fiver a month.
Wow.
And we only charge that to people who can afford it. We have about 50 orphans from orphanages that go there that have it free, and we test, we check everybody that applies to make sure that they can afford to pay that, and if they can't, then we waive it. But that then means it's a self-funding school. So the first bit, the hard bit, is building the school and raising the money, but then it's making sure it runs well, and that there are enough fees to sort of pay for the teachers, pay for the upkeep, pay for the maintenance and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm very proud of that. It's one of my best achievements I think I've done.
What about your best business achievement?
Oh, right place, being in the right place, right time, and investing in a business that was a fantastic idea, and it enabled me, and we took it from 10 million to 250 million IPO. I was one of the first investors in that business, and that was all about right time, right place, and just being a bit gutsy with the investment. Now I would say, and so that's enabled me to do what I do now. And now I am in a position where I feel very blessed because I have a great business model that works for me. I have some really valuable clients that trust me. To deliver, really good consultancy services to them, and I work with, I'd say about half a dozen good outsourcers who I trust and who trust me to, bring them good, highly qualified clients. So it works.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for your time. I really enjoyed talking to you. And I wish you every success in the future, but I don't think I really need to, because I think you're already there.
Thank you very much, Ewan. Really good talking to you. Cheers now.